Welcome to the Echo Essentials podcast. My name is Chris Piekarski, and today we have from the Northern Tornadoes Project, Dr. David Sills. He is the director of the project. We're talking about the downburst that happened across Highway 17 east of North Bay, and his findings from the NTP regarding what happened specifically from footage in downed trees and wind damage in Samuel de Champlain Provincial Park. It was a great conversation. We talked about a bit about the project at large, the damage that his team found, how the team kind of goes about, hitting the ground, so to speak, and getting out there, and what happens next. Like what good or what information or what policy or anything can be done from the findings that the NTP and the like can provide, whether it's municipalities, whether it's Environment Canada, whether it's provincial government, whichever. We talk about all that in the episode, and we cannot wait for you to listen to it. Before we get to that, though, I'm going to throw it to our title sponsor, the North Bay Regional Health Center Foundation.
Dear North Bay, as a single mom and full-time student, life can feel overwhelming and budgets are always tight. But one thing I never question is how deeply I care about my community. When I began volunteering at the North Bay Regional Health Center, I saw firsthand how much the healthcare system means to people, especially when life takes an unexpected turn. It made me think, what if it was my child, my parent, or my friend that was in need of care? That's when I realized I wanted to do more, to be part of something bigger than myself. I joined the I Give monthly club because even a small monthly gift can have a meaningful impact, helping ensure everyone in our community has access to the care they need right here at home. If you believe in strong, local health care, I hope you'll join me. Sign up at nbrhcfoundation.ca or call 705-495-8125. It's simple and it matters. With gratitude, Kim Cosgrove.
With me today is Dr. David Sills, director of the Northern Tornadoes Project. He received a BSc in Atmospheric Science and Certificate in Meteorology from York University in 1993, as well as a PhD in Atmospheric Science from York University in 1998. He worked for more than 20 years as a severe weather scientist with Environment Canada, conducting research on Canadian tornadoes, severe weather nowcasting, and mesoscale meteorology. He was awarded the CMOS Rube Hornstein Medal in Operational Meteorology and the Jeff Howell Citation for Excellence for Innovation. Dr. Sills is an adjunct professor with both Western Civil and Environmental Engineering Department and the University of Manitoba's Department of Environment and Geography. He serves as an associate editor for the Journal of Atmosphere Ocean and past associate editor for Monthly Weather Review. He is also a member of the ASCE Wind Speed Estimation in Tornadoes Committee, charged with updating the EF scale. Dr. David Sills, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Oh, great. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah. So it was great to have you in, and we're happy to touch base, no pun intended. Where are you calling from? Are you calling from campus? Are you calling from London?
At my home in London today, getting some renovations done on the house, so I thought I'd better stick around and answer questions as necessary.
Well, if we have to break, if you have to have like a dry water come in and talk, we won't get him on the show or anything, but we'll proceed as is. So I give you a bit of a decent bio here that came from your website. You have some crazy good experience here. Can you tell me a bit about what your day-to-day looks like and how you got in here? Like, tell me a bit about like yourself aside from the background.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to start, I've been interested in weather since I was a kid. I grew up in Windsor, Ontario, and lots of storms there. So right since I was a kid, always interested in storms, and that the interest just grew as I went through and got my degree in meteorology and ended up doing a PhD. That was never intended, but I wanted to be a forecaster, but they weren't hiring at the time. So off to research I went and ended up getting the PhD. But, aside from doing that, I do have other interests. I sail. So we had a sailboat, my wife and I, up in Wyerton on Georgian Bay. And photographer, professional musician. I have a CD that's out and so on. So, I'd like to keep it interesting. I do a number of different things aside from just weather stuff, because that would just crazy doing weather all the time.
Fair. I mean, honestly, it's always cool hearing about the other stuff that people are doing. And when people come into the show and we talk about their experience, and then we'll have like a city council bring up like a niche interest, and that's always kind of fun. What kind of music do you play? Like before we get into the nitty gritty of the downbursts, what are you jamming on?
kind of roots rock, folk rock stuff. Yeah. From Johnny Cash to the hip to, all that kind of genre. But I write my own songs. It was a 50th birthday present, basically, to record an album and have an album release party, and got to do all that. I have a lot of friends who are musicians, so I've got to see them do that over the years, and it's like I want to do that. That'd be killer. So yeah, got to do that, and yeah, go to Spotify, go to Apple Music. I'm on there. Dave Sills 50.
There we go. Love the cross promo. So, Dave, we have you in today to talk a bit about the downburst that happened along Highway 17 east of North Bay. And, your team, the NTP, or the Northern Tornadoes Project, covered some of the damage and downburst and the down trees in the park, correct?
That's right. Yeah. We received reports, obviously, of some massive damage in that park. I think a lot of people were really surprised when they started seeing the photos coming out of that park. It happened at night, so it took a while for us to actually see the full extent of the damage. But yeah, I don't know if it's every tree in that park, but it looks from the pictures like every tree in that campground is down. And it's a downburst that stretches probably about 9 or 10 kilometers long and maybe about 3 kilometers wide, where the focus, the worst damage, is actually right in the park and in the vicinity of the park. So just unfortunate that it actually, the worst of it hit the park itself where people were camping. And when you look at all of the trees that fell on tents and campers and so on, vehicles, it is really astounding that there weren't more injuries and maybe even a fatality with this, because that is a lot of big trees coming down on top of people in the middle of the night.
Yeah, we had the mayor and deputy mayor of municipality of Bonfield in to the show a couple weeks ago, and it was, for us, it was really eye opening just to kind of hear about what they had to kind of go through, like at the small government level, and so much so that the deputy mayor was actually in the park when it happened, and he got called up to. This is a wild story. I mean, definitely talk about shout outs. Goes no other episode, listeners and Dave included, where Deputy Mayor talked about how he was called to kind of be on a crisis, alert mode, but he was in the middle of the said crisis, right? Like, along with a lot of other people, but he couldn't get out. Like, he was basically like trapped into the park because of the down trees. Yeah, I haven't been out that way since the storm. Like, we record North Bay, so not that far. But the amount of trees that people have been saying are down, like you said, it feels so it feels like it's, like you said, like every tree nearly, right? Like, I don't know, like, where do we go from there? Like, I mean, that's maybe a topic that we can kind of end on, but it's a significant amount of damage. And so I guess being the director of the Northern Tornadoes Project, like, how did you kind of get looped into this? Like, in terms of, like, knowing about the storm, were you kind of asked to kind of come in on it? Were you reporting on it naturally? Obviously, having, that, atmospheric science and meteorology background. How'd you kind of get dialed into this?
Well, to be honest, I was on vacation. It's hard to take vacation during the summer when you're doing this kind of work, but I try to squeeze in 1 week during the summer so my wife doesn't kill me. And so I was up sailing in the North Channel at the time when this happened, and but I was seeing what was going on, and that the team had been sent out. But certainly, we were with that kind of weather pattern that was set up. As I was leaving for this trip, I'm thinking, oh man, this could be really bad. And there had been really bad storms with downbursts and tornadoes in the upper U.S. states. So I guess it was like the Dakotas and going into Minnesota. And that was just, I think, the day or the day before that, and it was all moving our way. So I had a feeling my team would be busy, and that typically happens when I go on vacation. I don't know what it is, but I have a great team, so thankfully they were able to handle it. But when we get reports of enhanced tree damage, basically, or enhanced damage of any kind, we really kick into gear pretty quickly because we want to get to the site before anything really gets cleaned up. So we So we have the evidence there to try to assess what happened, what it was that did happen. So yeah, the team arrived. I think it was the next day or the day after that, um, and got right away drones up in the air, getting aerial views of this, trying to map out exactly where the damage was, what got damaged. I believe it was almost all tree damage in this area. The thing that happens in these forest situations, even if there's buildings underneath the trees take the brunt of all of the wind, and the buildings only get damaged if a tree happens to fall on the building. That's typically what happens in these situations, is that it's the trees that take the brunt of the power of the storm. So yeah, just all the trees pretty much down in one direction, basically from north. The trees were down, I think, mostly from the north, but the whole area is basically oriented northwest to southeast. That's where how the downburst is oriented. And just from a powerful storm that came through, and there are other areas with damage from the storms that night, but this was by far the worst, where the storm was the most powerful as far as being able to down so many trees.
Yeah, we like to like it's pretty significant. Like I want to continue to cover this on our show because the storm may have come and gone, but the damage and the repairs and the next steps remain, right? And we here at Echo, we're always thinking about our friend, our colleague, and our fellow show host on the Echo Podcast Network, Bill Steer, host of Backroads Bill, and he has his show that he records, and he's obviously connected in the runner type, the Canadian Ecology Center, which is in the park, right? And we know they had a lot of significant damage, and yeah, it's I'm looking at the map, and I see all these pings of the photos and the drone photos and the worst damage. And from your preliminary finding report here, it is solely in the park, right? A lot of that big damage in those photos, it's a lot in the park. So I guess when we had our initial episode, Dr. Sills, we didn't have the classification, I think, from your end yet when we recorded, that it was classified as a downburst. We didn't know what it was called. So I guess maybe could you clarify for myself and our listeners and our viewers what separates a downburst or a different kind of storm or tornado? How do you classify these kinds of things?
Right. Well, that's one of the things that the team tends to do when it gets to a site with a lot of damage like this. Sometimes it's kind of predetermined because there's all these videos out of a tornado or something like that, and so it's easy to tell that it was the tornado that did the damage. But in a lot of cases, we don't know going in whether it was a tornado or a downburst, and that's part of what we're trying to find out. What we do to determine that is look for a long, narrow path of damage. Now, I know in this case the downburst had a path that was longer than wide, but we're actually looking for a path that has about a 10-to-1 ratio or more, meaning if it's 10 kilometers long, it's 1 kilometer wide, that kind of thing, very narrow compared to the length. That's the first sign. Sometimes you can also see actual rotary motion in the tree fall itself. You'll see that the trees are either down, excuse me, either down towards each other, so it's like a convergent pattern, or they're down in circles, or just a total mass, of chaos. That certainly indicates that there's a tornado involved, and it tends to have high, what we call high damage gradient, meaning there'll be a lot of damage and then suddenly no damage. With a downburst, most of the trees will be down in one direction, and sometimes they'll be even spread out from each other. So it's kind of a diverging pattern. And the worst of it will be near the middle, and then it'll get less and less near the edges. And that's certainly what we see here. And this is because of how the wind acts with these two different phenomena. With a tornado, the wind is going in towards the bottom of the storm near the surface and then up into the storm. So all of the wind is coming towards the bottom of the storm and going up. And so any damage is going to be, converging basically to a point. With a downburst, it's air that's being cooled by evaporation of rainfall. in the cloud itself, and the air falls out of the cloud and splashes down, and it accelerates as it's coming down. So it's gathering speed and then splashing down as it hits the surface, and then spreads out. And so that's why you get that diverging pattern. If the storm is moving pretty quickly, you get less of a diverging pattern and just trees all down in one direction. So, really different signatures basically in the damage when you're looking at tornadoes or you're looking at downbursts. So that's the first thing that the team wants to look at is, what are we dealing with here? Is it a downburst or a tornado? And those are the kinds of things that we look for.
Interesting. I mean, I'm whenever I'm on the show, we talk science. Like, I'm always reminded, Nipissing University alumni, shout out Lakers. I was a Bachelor of Arts student, and graduate. Like, I didn't take any hard sciences, let alone anything in terms of atmospheric science. So learning about this stuff is fascinating because, like, I can't even comprehend, like, how our Earth works this way. Like, it's such an amazing thing, not like in a celebratory way, because this is terrible, but like I can't believe it. It's an astonishing kind of thing because you hear about, when you just said, like, the water comes down with force, like, and then the tornadoes kind of like come up. It's like, well, how does this even happen? This sounds like something out of, like, a Star Wars movie, when you can imagine forces of nature kind of being at, like, some uncontrollable will. But, like, this was truly like a force of nature, right? Like, we could talk about predicting it, but, like, I mean, what can we even do in these instances? Like, we had some heads up noticed, but, like, what could have, the Park or Mattawa or Bonfield, Calvin, done more than they already did, right? If it's going to happen, is it not just going to happen anyway?
Yeah, there won't be enough notice to evacuate the park, that's for sure. Um, and again, it was in the middle of the night, so it makes it even harder. We were talking about this yesterday in a meeting at the Northern Tornadoes Project about camping safety, and that we should really try to get more guidance on what people should do into the camping guides that are provided when you enter the park. I tried that in the past. It's a little hard to get that a serious uptake on that, but there are steps that people can take to make themselves safer. Number one, if you're car camping, you're not safe in a tent. Lightning can go right through a tent, or there's a ground flash. Like, basically, the charge goes across the ground, and if you're in a tent on the ground, you're gonna get hit. So there's no protection at all from lightning in a tent. And obviously, if a tree's falling on a tent, there's no protection at all there either. If you have your car right next to your tent, that's a much safer place. It acts like a Faraday cage, meaning if lightning hits the car, it spreads the charge out around the car, and so you're safe inside the car. So it's much safer in lightning. And, if a tree does fall on your car, it's likely to really put a big dent in it, but you're probably going to survive. And if you think enough to kind of get down low in the car so that any debris that's flying around, or, the roof getting dented in isn't going to affect you, then you'll be quite safe. So, that's one thing that you can do is, if you're car camping, your car is your shelter, basically. Like, there's the washrooms that are at the parks aren't built to withstand big storms or anything like that. They may be able to withstand a tree falling on them. So you could go to a shelter, like one of the washrooms in the park. But, in the middle of the night, pouring rain, sheets of lightning, you're the best place to go is just get to your car and try to stay low in the vehicle. Much safer lightning wise, and quite a bit safer than being in a tent, or even a canvas camper. Sometimes a hardtop camper even is just no match for a big falling tree. So that's one thing people can do. The other thing is, sometimes a watch is issued well before the warning, and so you have some idea that there's going to be a big storm, maybe later that night or something like that. I think in this case there must have been watches issued. It was a pretty big storm event. Um, and those watches are usually issued hours in advance of the storm hitting. So that gives you time to think about preparations. Either say, hey, I'm not set up for dealing with a storm in this campground. We're heading out of here, and leave. Or think about what you'll do if a big storm hits in the middle of the night. Just to give you a little bit of a heads up that you might have to think fast. And that's what warnings or watches are all about, is to prepare you mentally for something may happen and you may have to take action. And then when the warning is issued, that's when you do have to take the action.
North Bay is turning 100, and what a time to be here. From the buzz of the Heritage Parade to sunset concerts at the waterfront, the city is alive with celebration. And you know who's right in the middle of it all? Homewood Suites by Hilton North Bay. We're proud to be a part of this milestone moment. Whether you're coming home from a family reunion, planning a gathering with friends, or just simply making the most of everything the Centennial has to offer, our doors are open. Stay in a spacious suite that feels like home, with a full kitchen to cook in, room to relax, and a space to unwind after a full day of fun. Are you hosting something bigger? Our event spaces and amazing local partners like the Grand and Stock Transportation make it easy to bring people together. Best of all, they're just steps from the action. The fireworks, the food trucks, the music, the laughter, it's all right here. Celebrate 100 years of North Bay with us. Use code Centennial to save on your stay anytime this year. Be at home with Homewood Suites by Hilton North Bay. Join the party today at 495 Oak Street West or give us a call at 705-495-3000.
Spring is here, and that means one thing. Baseball is back. At Source for Sports North Bay, we're proud to be part of every pitch, every catch, and every moment that brings our community together on the diamond. Whether it's outfitting little leaguers for their very first game, helping local teams suit up for the season, or simply sharing the love of the sport, we're here for it. We're more than just a sports store. We're neighbors, coaches, teammates, and fans. And we're proud to support the leagues, schools, and families who make North Bay's baseball scene so special. Wherever your sports journey takes you, make sure you visit Source for Sports North Bay at 1321 Fisher Street so we can help you along your way.
Maybe I've just been living, in a state of naivete throughout my entire life, never having to, encounter a downburst or a tornado. And North Bay has had its own, instances throughout the last, 30 some years of my life. But I don't remember to this degree, except for maybe one instance where I gotta remember what year it was, and maybe we can put this in post. But it was probably around 2006, 2007, where we had almost like a downburst type of thing, where we had this massive windstorm in the city of North Bay. But I'll look at a severe, not so much a warning, but what you said, a watch. Thank you. Yeah, it's a different W word. Where I was okay, it's just something I have to keep in mind, right? And when the storm came through, my location in North Bay, it was just a lot of rain, a lot of wind, and some lightning. It looked like just a traditionally bad storm, right? Because we weren't in, quote unquote, the eye of it. We were on the outside of it. Whereas, you go west of the city, or you go east of the city, excuse me, and you see quite a bit different story. So I do want to get back to your team. So when you knew this was kind of coming down the pipe, and you had the warning, or you had the watch, excuse me, then you had the warning, and then obviously it happened, and there was an amazing effort at the ground level from all different parties and municipalities to kind of pick everyone up. At that point, were you all right, team, put on your BA Baracus and put on the A team here, we're gonna go to it? Did you send the crew up north and to check on it? How does the deployment go?
Right. Well, I guess the first thing is the decision to go. So I usually make that on behalf of the Northern Tornadoes Project. Yes, this is an event we have to investigate, and usually any significant damage requires an investigation on our part. And then it goes to my lead field team member, Aaron Jaffe, and he makes the decisions on, okay, who's leading this team, who's available to go, and it puts the team together and sends them out on the road. And a lot of times it's him that's leading the charge. In this particular case, it wasn't. He'd already been out in the field in Quebec, and so he wasn't available. It was a pretty busy week, again, because I was on vacation. but once that field team gets on the road, it might take, and we're driving from London for pretty much anywhere in Ontario, aside from the far northwest or western Quebec. We're driving from Ontario, so that's maybe 8-10 hour drive, and so it takes basically a day just to get there, get set up in a hotel, so the next morning they can be out first thing. And like I said, the team, usually it's a 4-person team with one really experienced person at least. That's part of the team, that's leading the team, and getting out on site. Basically, what you're trying to do initially is figure out where the worst damage was. When we do, in this case, that was campground, and try to find people in that area who are in charge of the situation, so that we can tell them that we are there, and they can tell us, well, you really should have a look here or start here. The damage extends this far. You should talk to this person about what they saw. All these things, right? Um, and it's just a matter of working out from there. So basically assessing that initial area of damage that's the worst, and then trying to find how long, how wide, and how intense overall is the event after we've determined if it, like I said, if it was a tornado or a downburst. Sometimes in the process of doing all that, it takes all of that work to determine if it was a tornado or a downburst. And yeah, it's just we've got an app on everybody has an iPad with this app on it that allows them to take pictures. It's got GPS on it, so they know the location. It's got all of the EF scale damage indicators, so they just choose what type of damage they're looking at and then assess how strong it is, and it gives them a wind speed. For every one of those blue points on the map, that's what's going on. For every orange point on this map, this is where a drone photo was taken. And you can see there's probably 100 of them there. And so lots of drone images taken to show what's going on above. So it's a combination of working at the ground and flying a drone to get the aerial view, and putting all that information together. So the tools that we have to do this these days are a lot more sophisticated than what I had when I worked at Environment Canada for 20 years as a severe weather scientist. When I would go out in the field and do a damage survey back in the day, I have a compass, a notebook, pretty rudimentary stuff, and try to piece things all together. Now they've got all these sophisticated tools. They all have a license to fly a drone. Like, I'm way behind. I haven't even got a license yet. So thankfully, I'm really at the command center, and I can watch all the data they collect come in at the command center. It's the app is pretty fantastic. And based, like I said, putting all of that data collected together, and then looking at radar as well. How does it all fit together? And then making the final determinations. Usually it's myself and my head meteorologist, Leslie Elliott, who are making the final decisions on all of the numbers. So basically what the rating is, what the length, the width, all these things, based on the recommendations of the team. And then it's a matter of publishing all of this. So we want to make the data open to anybody, including the media, municipal officials, and the public. So we put together a report, get that out on our blog and our website, and then we send links to that report out in our social media channels, and make sure that everybody is aware that it's out and published. And yeah, people can look at how we assess that event, and they can also go to our dashboard that's on our website, and then see all of the events and how they're being mapped out that particular year or in past years, filtered by month or year or intensity. So all of this data that we're collecting is made publicly available, so everybody has access to it. And when I was at Environment Canada, that just wasn't a thing. If you wanted to see what was collected by a damage survey team, you might find someone who was in charge. Sometimes it was me, and ask them nicely, but it just wasn't made public. So this is a real revolution in data availability, and the open science, open access data approach is something that is built right into the heart of the Northern Tornadoes Project.
I love that. I think it's always the betterment of good PR at the very least to kind of, when we're, I say we're, I mean, I work with the university in Nipissing for a while, Nipissing University, but like when you have that kind of level of transparency with the public to kind of like, showcase and talk about your findings and what you're trying to do good and make those findings available to help maybe build something different. That's powerful. And for all the data heads out there, I highly recommend you go to this, the NTP's dashboard. It's fascinating. It is data centralized. It's really interesting. You get to see like how many tornadoes have happened, events under investigation, all events total. If you're of that kind of mind, I definitely recommend you go check it out. But I do kind of want to talk. Sorry.
If you're someone who loves maps like me, you could spend hours there, right? It's there's fascinating data there, and we actually have another dashboard that we created that goes all the way back to 1980. So we call this our advanced dashboard. So it's got data from 1980 to 2024, not just the NTP data, but data that we've worked on that goes back to 1980, and it's got all of the tracks. So we call this, our dashboard for our power users, people who want to really dig in, want to look further back. It's all, again, publicly available. You have to get an account to use that because it's there's a special ArcGIS software platform that we have to use and have an account on in order for you to see the map in that case. But it's even more amazing to see all of that data in one place and be able to play with it. Basically, look at the when, the where, the how strong, all of these things, and slice and dice the data just how you want to see it.
So I guess let's talk about playing with that data and continuing and using your words. What do you hope can be used from the findings that you and your team found from the downburst? Like, is there something that the townships or the municipalities can use? Is there something from the provincial government that they can use? Is there some sort of maybe map in which we can, start replanting trees? Like, what do you think are some viable, resourceful outcomes that we can gain from the data that you guys collected?
Right. Well, we've been building connections with emergency managers in the last few years, and it's been pretty extraordinary. I didn't even realize that community was out there, but I think it's also kind of a recent thing. Like, 10, 20 years ago, there wasn't this emergency management community. So there's that, and Emergency Management Ontario with the province, and we have really strong connections with them. We're trying to build connections in other provinces too. But the idea, though, is that municipalities, parks need to know what the risk is. And not only that, but like what happened that night, right? We get to help them understand what happened to them, and that's an important part of the process. But also, how often does this happen? And we can provide some of those answers and in risk maps, and a lot of our data goes into that, into building risk maps, climatologies. So how often these kinds of events do happen. The other side of it, at Western, I mean, we're all basically in the engineering department at Western. I'm a meteorologist, so this was kind of a foreign thing to me, but it's wind engineering, and they work more on the resilience side of things. Like, how can we make buildings be more tornado resilient? How can we make like understand tree damage and how it works? We have a tornado simulator and a downburst simulator at Western where you can actually walk through a tornado. It's pretty cool.
You made a nightmare machine.
What's that?
So you made a nightmare machine.
Yeah. Although,
It's very cool.
When you see it working, it's like, wow, this is fantastic. But we can do studies of how wind affects neighborhoods, how wind affects forests, how they affect vehicles, all of these things in these simulators. So that's more the wind engineering side, and certainly trying to get building code changes made, these kinds of things. It's a long, hard process, and my colleagues in the wind engineering department have been working on this for a long time. but it looks like, with all of the work that we've been doing with the Northern Tornadoes Project, we're starting to get some progress there. As far as maybe some building code changes. It's funny, like the building code in Canada is mostly about preventing a roof from collapsing under snow loads, not being pulled off by wind.
Fair.
So it takes a lot to convince the people in positions of power here in as far as building code that yes, it's important to consider this, and we should have measures in the building code for builders to try to prevent the roof from coming off in wind. And it doesn't require much. It's, so things like hurricane clips. So this is basically a metal clip that attaches the roof to the walls, and very inexpensive when you're building a home to put these on. But it makes the building, the home resilient to a tornado up to EF2 strength, basically. And that's 95% of the problem. So, it's this kind of thing where we can show, the risk maps based on our data, we're able to do as far as increasing community resilience, and putting all of that together to try to convince policymakers and building code people that, hey, it's time to update this, and we can make communities a lot safer, particularly with climate change. We're still looking at how climate change is going to affect tornadoes and downbursts. It's really difficult when you get down to that small scale, but we certainly know in the case of flash floods that this is an area where this is getting worse, and every municipality will tell you that they're seeing it already, and so trying to come up with resilience measures for that too. We plan to have a project that focuses on flash flooding because it is such a hazard. We have the Northern Tornadoes Project. In 2022, we started the Northern Hail Project, and then the next project to come along will be the Flash Flood Project, and it's all under the umbrella of this new Canadian Severe Storms Lab that we started last fall. There's a critical mass of people and resources there to be able to study these problems and fill a lot of these gaps. Like these climatologies, they just haven't existed in the past. Tornadoes maybe we've made the most headway with that over the years. But as far as hail climatologies, like damaging hail or flash flood climatologies, they just don't exist. And so, that's where we want to focus our efforts in the coming years, is making sure we have all of the data for understanding what things are like now, a baseline, and then trying to dig back to see if there have been any long-term trends, and then trying to connect to see if that may have been influenced by climate change. So there's a heck of a lot of work to do, and we're just really digging into it now, and we're hoping that this goes on for a long time.
I'm hoping it does too, because like you said, climate change isn't, unfortunately, we wish it was. It's not going anywhere. We need to address it. We need to talk about it. Like it'd be foolish, not to. And I know it's become a political issue, but I can imagine, sometimes there's a lot of hurdles you have to jump through, or over rather, to kind of, gather from your findings and then, put that into policy or recommendations or anything that we can do to kind of, help move forward with it. Whether it's something as, you say as inexpensive long-term as a hurricane, what you call it, a shackle or a bolt or a
hurricane clip.
That's the one, yeah.
And there's also hurricane ties is another name for it. And the newest thing is screws. There's these long screws that you can put in now that basically function the same way, and they're even cheaper than their hurricane ties. There's actually a community south of London in St. Thomas where a builder has said, okay, I want to take all the things that you guys have recommended at Western and build a new community, a subdivision using all of these provisions, and we'll call it a tornado resilient community.
Wow.
And like that. And yeah, so they used all the longer nails that I recommended. They used the screw ties to keep the roof on. And we'll see how this community performs, but they've done everything that we've recommended, and they can, advertise it as this is a tornado resilient community.
I love that. I hope they never have to test it. Speaking in terms of general logistics, but if it ever happens, it sounds like they have a lot of good measures in place. And before I let you go, Dr. Sills, I do want to ask you one more general question about maybe some of your findings that you're finding in not just Ontario, but in Canada. But I mean, maybe we can focus on Ontario, because growing up, I never thought Ontario was a tornado hub or a place of active, wind storms or events. But like, am I, over extrapolating or overreacting to thinking like we're having more of these events in Ontario, or at least more different classifications of events? Because it feels like Northern Ontario might be a bit different than Southern Ontario, but are you finding there's an increased uptick in the last 30 years?
Well, it's something I'm working on right now.
Okay.
Because we have that data set that goes back to 1980, and trying to determine if a trend that's happening in the U.S. is happening here. And what the trend in the U.S. is that tornadoes, and I think, severe storms in general, they're happening less often in the tornado alley and the plains, and they're happening more often east of the Mississippi. So there's this eastward trend that's really not good, because there's a lot more population in the east than there is in the west, right? So that really complicates things. But that's been a trend. There's been several studies now that have found this trend. So when we started our project, the Northern Tornadoes Project, back in 2017, we had fully expected that the Prairies would be the place where there'd be the most tornadoes. And of course, Ontario gets its share, and we know that there have been big tornadoes here. Quebec, I'd always been told, Quebec doesn't get tornadoes, so I didn't worry about that too much. But, right from our first year, all these tornadoes in Quebec and Eastern Ontario, and not much in the Prairies. And then the next year, same thing. And I think, is this a blip, or is this something happening here? And it's just continued. The most tornadoes have been in Eastern Ontario and kind of the western part of Quebec. And it's been really eye-opening. There was one year in 2023 when Saskatchewan just had one recorded tornado. So, I wanted to see if this is a blip, like I said, or something real. And yeah, I broke up the data sets into two big blocks and looked at it before and after. And it shows, it's clear. It's the Prairies, there's less happening there tornado-wise, and there's more happening in the east. And this is a paper I've got to put through peer review, and somebody might shut me down, but I don't think so. I think the data look pretty strong, and it matches the trend that is being seen in the U.S. And that is, it hasn't been officially connected to climate change in any publication so far. But when you see what's going on in the West as far as drought, like long-term drought, just the heat and the lack of moisture out there in the U.S. and Western U.S. and parts of Western Canada, and the resulting fires that are occurring, it's climate change driven. And so, it's likely that there is a connection there. It takes a lot to find the scientific connections and make those arguments and get them past reviewers in a peer-reviewed publication. So that's the challenge. But this is a pretty new science, trying to connect severe storms to climate change. And despite what you've heard in the news, where, well, the atmosphere is warming, therefore we're going to get more storms. It's not that easy. It's so much more complicated. So we have to do all the little things that show that these factors are climate change driven. Anyway, that work is underway, and yes, it does seem like in Ontario we are getting more. We are now the tornado capital of Canada. It used to be Saskatchewan, and we've discovered a lot more tornadoes that are happening in the forested regions of Ontario and Quebec than we ever knew about before. And that's because we have access now to high resolution satellite imagery that we didn't have before. And we've discovered hundreds of tornadoes going back to the 1980s that no one knew existed. Some of them are just huge. The forestry companies just didn't report it or something, just didn't make it out. So we know about that now. And so we're getting a much fuller picture of where the tornadoes are occurring in Canada, where the risk is. And a lot of it is in these northern areas that have all these campgrounds. This isn't the first campground that's been really slammed by a big storm. Halfway Lake, I think it was 2002, same kind of thing. We've seen tornadoes wipe out campgrounds in Saskatchewan. Same kind of thing, almost every tree down in the campground. So, these things are happening across Canada, and I would agree that it seems like it's happening more. I'm not sure how much more. We have to quantify that. But Ontario is getting a lot of the action lately, and what the western part of Quebec. And my personal mission is to find out, is this a long-term trend? And like I said, I think it is. So a little preview of the research that I hope to get published this year.
Well, I look forward to reading it. If and when it comes down, I'll be waiting first. But I mean, Godspeed. Like, this is, hearing about, you just said like the western part of Quebec and the eastern part of Ontario, like North Bay is considered northeast, right? And so like for me, I'm definitely paying attention. Like, this is important, and I feel like I'm educated, and I know I'm not alone on this. Just like trying to know more about the world in which I'm living in. And so I think, when NTP does these findings and does these, long-term studies and these, deep dives with your critical massive team, you have a great team there. And I hope you guys continue to do great work. I think you guys have, you're doing something that's difficult, but I think it's very exciting in terms of, modern day, atmospheric science. And so thank you, Dr. Sills, for coming in today. I do appreciate you joining us. I hope next time you go on vacation, you have less work activity. I hope you can enjoy it the way you like to. But again, great work, and thank you for coming in today. I appreciate it.
Great. Well, thanks for having me, Chris. It's been a pleasure.
For our listeners and our viewers, is there any place in which they can find you on socials? Or obviously, we talked about your website, your dashboard. Is there any other place that they can kind of find you or your findings?
Sure. Well, if you search on the Northern Tornadoes Project on Facebook and on Blue Sky, that's where we've ended up, is on Blue Sky. Those two places are where we publish all of our results, and personally, I'm also active there. And if you want to get to our website, it's pretty simple, uwo.ca/NTP, and you'll find links to everything there as well.
Dave, thank you so much, and we'll see you around, I guess. Thank you so much.
Okay, take care.
Thank you for listening to the Echo Essentials podcast. My name is Chris Piekarski, and we hope you enjoyed the episode. We thought it was fantastic. Feel free to let us know what you think. Leave us a like, a comment. If you're not subscribed already, please do. Follow us on our socials. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Make sure to let us know what you think about the findings of the episode, and maybe let us know what you want to hear from next. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.